just to come back to move on to your other films and to something we just touched on briefly with Showgirls. Why do you think it's taken some time for the culture or the critics to catch up with some of your films? Showgirls, it's not just Showgirls. Starship Troopers was a very misunderstood film, especially in America, and I think RoboCop was, I think, read fairly superficially at the time, but I think this much more sophisticated takes on it have emerged. Why do you think it's taken time?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's how you start something like that, isn't it? But in all honesty, I'm guessing. I think perhaps it was too cryptic, especially in the case of Starship Troopers. You could say that our political position was cryptic. Of course, and we were trying to tell that these people, with their nearly pseudo-fascist or Nazi uniforms and attitudes, were perhaps your heroes, but by the way, they were also fascist. That was the idea. And that was it's based on our battle, our fight with the novel of Robert Heinlein, because that is in fact pretty militaristic and even proto-fascist. And of course we didn't want to do that, but on the other hand we wanted to tell that story. So I think we were really trying to tell the people that yes, of course these are heroes, but. And I think that was not understood, I mean, there's a lot of, let's say, shots in the movie that I borrowed from a documentary film by Leni Riefenstahl in the early 30s, Triumph of the Will, which was basically about the Nuremberg gatherings of Adolf Hitler. And I gathered shots. I was really trying to tell the audience or the critic or whatever. Of course, I borrow from Leni Riefenstahl because I want to tell you that these people that you might like and that are very sympathetic, that are really sympathetic in some way, that you should not completely follow them. And I think that was used against the movie because that was, in the eyes of a lot of critics, it was like me saying, this is great. And I was saying, but yeah, they are great, but the background is not so great. So I think at that time was not understood in any way. I mean, it was really attacked and all over the place. And I was amazed, because I thought I had made it very clear that you shouldn't really trust them, the heroes. Well, that's unusual perhaps in American filmmaking, but that's what we tried to do, and took some time to convince people that there was another layer there, isn't it?
How did you convince the studio to give you $100 million for that film?
Well, the money basically we spent, and I don't think they got it really back. No.
It's interesting that you use the word cryptic, because I think in many ways you're actually a very direct filmmaker, and I don't know that Starship Troopers is a cryptic film necessarily. Maybe there's just
apparently it was at that time.
I'm just wondering if there's maybe just certain levels of irony that were difficult to perceive, and also just the question of identification, which I think your films always raise, like how is the audience supposed to identify with the character?
Well, I mean, you use the word irony, but I mean, irony is a lost art, isn't it, nearly? I mean, irony is not well understood. It's not really functioning too much in the visual arts, and even in the normal discourse. So I think if you're ironic, you risk, of course, that people might might not see the irony. And if you don't see the irony, then of course it's pretty brutal and in your face wrong. and so, but why it took so, yeah, I'm glad that that ultimately people start to see what it was really. I mean, how can you doubt it when you see one of your main characters coming in a black Nazi uniform and say, well guys, great, I mean, a lot of people died, but there was nothing we could do, and we sent you in again and you might die again, you know, all your friends might die. You would think that people would think, oh, but no, they didn't see it.
You had, I think, a pretty remarkable run in Hollywood, from, you know, I guess RoboCop to Hollow Man, and can you say a bit about your? I guess first, I had two questions. First of all, I'm wondering if you miss anything about working in Hollywood.
Sure, because there is an enormous amount of talent here. And I think probably for me it was, when I came here, it was wonderful to find out not only about the talent in front of the camera, but also behind the camera. So of course you come in here into a kind of a paradise of talent. And if you cannot make movies here anymore, it happened, of course, in the last 10-15 years. Yeah, you feel it's sad. Yeah, sure. And of course, and then but then when you go back to Europe and it works, then yeah, well, you try to live with what's possible, isn't it? Mm. So the opportunities that I got in Europe were, let's say, to me, more interesting than what I could do in the United States during these last 10 years.
So you think the films that you made in that period would not be possible in the Hollywood climate of the last 15 years or so?
The European movies I made?
No, I mean like the Hollywood movies that you made in the 80s and 90s they would not have been possible.
No, I don't think you could do Starship Troopers now. No. I mean, if you compare the new edition, the new of RoboCop or Total Recall, what is evident to me that all these elements of, let's say, irony and a light touch and a wink and this and that were all taken out, yeah, if you see the remakes, in fact. I mean, it's straight on, and I think both stories are a little bit ridiculous, and if you take them completely seriously, I think then it's really horrible, you know. So something is lost, perhaps not forever, but seems to be lost a little bit in Los Angeles, yeah. But I survived, you know, so I'm fine, you know, and if there would be an American movie that I like, I would immediately do it, you know. There's, as I said, there's so much talent here, and people are so good, so it was wonderful to do it as long as I could, and if we can perhaps I can make a comeback.